My sister, Elaine, 26F, scheduled her boyfriend's surprise party on my 28F wedding day, and my parents chose the party over my ceremony. Now, they've learned I'm inheriting my aunt and uncle's entire estate and suddenly want me to have the wedding again. I've always felt like the outcast in my family, constantly compared to and overshadowed by Elaine. My parents, particularly my mother, have always favored her. This preferential treatment has been evident since childhood, and I've never understood why. When I was born, my parents were facing financial and emotional hardship. They made the difficult decision to let my aunt and uncle raise me for the first 6 years of my life. My aunt later explained that my mom struggled with severe postpartum depression, which made caring for me challenging. My aunt and uncle, recognizing the severity of the situation, welcomed me into their home without hesitation. As a baby, I was unaware they weren't my biological parents, growing up feeling secure and loved in their care. This changed when I started school. My parents began visiting occasionally, explaining their biological connection and that my stay with my aunt and uncle was temporary. These visits were a source of confusion. While excited to see them, I also experienced a sense of abandonment as they would inevitably leave, taking Elaine with them. This pattern continued, making it clear that Elaine was their priority. While my aunt and uncle showered me with affection and support, my parents' fleeting visits left me feeling perpetually unwanted. At 6, I returned to live with my parents. Initial excitement faded as I encountered a starkly different reality compared to the life I knew. One of the first hurdles was sharing a room with Elaine. She'd always had her own room and a spare bedroom was available. Yet, my parents insisted on us sharing, hoping we would bond. Elaine, however, resented this new arrangement and made her displeasure known. She mocked me relentlessly for playing too loudly, reading books given to me by my aunt and uncle, decorating my side of the room, achieving good grades, practicing the guitar my aunt and uncle had gifted me, and even trivial things like how I organized my toys or talked about my day. Every aspect of my personality seemed to irritate her. Over time, I internalized this criticism, believing I was the problem. Desperately wanting to fit in, I started suppressing my interests. I stopped reading my books at home, resorting to reading only at school. I abandoned my guitar entirely. I hoped these changes would lead to Elaine's acceptance. Unfortunately, no matter how much I tried to adapt, her attitude remained unchanged. The more I attempted to please her, the more I felt I was losing pieces of myself. Even when I ceased the activities that bothered her, Elaine would find new reasons for ridicule. In my early teens, hormonal changes led to acne. Elaine seized on this, constantly taunting me about my appearance, calling me ugly and disgusting. When I confided in my parents, seeking comfort and intervention, my mother dismissed my tears, telling me to toughen up and confront Elaine myself. My father remained largely detached, preferring to stay out of the conflict. This lack of parental support, combined with Elaine's persistent bullying, left me feeling isolated and confused. I yearned for the nurturing environment of my aunt and uncle's home, where I felt valued and understood. My aunt and uncle continued to visit whenever possible, gently attempting to reason with Elaine, but their efforts were futile. As I grew older, this constant negativity fueled a growing anger within me. Elaine's attitude towards me didn't improve. In fact, the more I tried to appease her, the more I felt like I was losing myself. Even when I stopped doing the things that irritated her, she'd find new ways to mock me. In my early teens, I developed acne due to hormonal changes. Elaine constantly ridiculed my appearance, calling my face ugly and disgusting. Hurt and humiliated, I'd cry and go to my parents, but instead of support or reprimanding Elaine, my mom would tell me to stop crying and toughen up. My dad offered little help, preferring to avoid the conflict. My mom insisted I needed to stand up to my sister rather than intervening herself. As a result of Elaine's bullying and my parents' inability to provide a safe and loving environment, I felt increasingly confused and isolated. I longed for the nurturing home of my aunt and uncle, where I'd always felt valued and understood. They continued to visit whenever possible, gently attempting to dissuade Elaine from her hurtful behavior, but she remained indifferent to their pleas. As I grew older, I became a resentful teenager. Despite being younger, Elaine was more popular at school. She seemed to resent my growing circle of friends and would attempt to sabotage my relationships by spreading rumors. This time, instead of seeking help from my parents, I began to defend myself, confronting Elaine about the rumors and ensuring my friends knew the truth. Elaine would complain to our parents, and while I was sometimes scolded, I also felt a sense of satisfaction, mixed with guilt, for finally retaliating. The final incident, which truly solidified my parents' favoritism towards Elaine, occurred during my high school graduation. I'd worked hard throughout high school and was graduating with honors. I longed for my parents' presence and support at the ceremony, hoping for their pride and encouragement. However, just days before graduation, my mother informed me that Elaine had a dance recital scheduled for the same day. Despite the events being hours apart, Elaine wanted my parents to attend her full dress rehearsal, and according to my mother, needed them more. My mother assured me that my dad would at least be there for my graduation. Disappointed but resigned, I clung to the hope of having at least one parent present. On the day of the ceremony, I was devastated to discover that my dad hadn't shown up either. Apparently, my mom had called him urgently, claiming Elaine was having a panic attack before her rehearsal and desperately needed him. He chose to rush to Elaine's side, missing my graduation entirely. As I walked across the stage to receive my diploma, I saw no familiar faces in the audience cheering me on. I felt utterly alone and abandoned. When I returned home, my parents and Elaine were still absent. I called them, only to learn they were celebrating Elaine's successful rehearsal. Hours later, they returned home, jubilant and showering Elaine with praise for her performance, as if it were the most significant event of the year. I was consumed by jealousy and hurt. My parents didn't even offer an apology for missing my graduation. This was a stark realization of my place in their priorities. Despite my hard work and achievements, I was always overshadowed and undervalued compared to Elaine. This experience became a turning point in my understanding of my parents' perception of us and shaped my own sense of belonging within the family. I began to withdraw, no longer seeking their approval or attention. I stopped seeking my parents' help or presence. I no longer bothered sharing my academic or extracurricular achievements, knowing they wouldn't be truly appreciated. My aunt and uncle became my sole confidants, celebrating even my smallest accomplishments. Their words meant more to me than any recognition from my parents ever could. When Elaine graduated high school and was accepted into a prestigious university, my parents threw a lavish celebration. They were overflowing with pride, boasting about her accomplishments and hosting a party in her honor. I congratulated my sister sincerely, despite our strained relationship. A year later, when I graduated college with a computer science degree and a job offer from a leading tech company, my parents' response was starkly different. Nothing. Witnessing this disparity, my aunt and uncle decided to celebrate my achievement by organizing a small gathering with close relatives and friends. What was intended to be a modest affair grew as more family and friends expressed their desire to participate and show their support. However, my parents disapproved, deeming the celebration excessive and undeserved, especially since they hadn't done the same for Elaine. While my aunt and uncle's planned party was admittedly more elaborate than Elaine's high school graduation celebration, I wished my parents could have allowed me this one moment of recognition without complaint. My mother argued that Elaine would be upset if she learned about the party, particularly since she had only received a gift card for her graduation. Visibly upset, my aunt reminded my mother how she and my uncle had always stepped in to support and celebrate me because my parents consistently failed to do so. She pointed out the stark contrast between their enthusiastic celebrations of Elaine's achievements and their indifference towards mine. My uncle echoed her sentiments, questioning the double standard in celebrating their children's successes. My parents defended themselves, claiming it was difficult to balance celebrations for two children and that their focus had naturally been on Elaine's milestones as the youngest. They argued they couldn't do everything equally for both of us. My mother insisted that their lack of celebration didn't equate to a lack of love. Thankfully, my aunt and uncle were unconvinced. My uncle argued passionately that being a parent meant being there for both children, criticizing their unequal treatment. In the end, my parents had no valid argument, and I had the party, just as my aunt and uncle intended. I invited Elaine, but she declined, claiming she was too busy with college preparations to attend my silly little party. For years, my parents continued to favor Elaine, even into adulthood. This was especially evident in how they treated our respective partners. While Elaine and her boyfriend were always warmly welcomed at family gatherings, I felt increasingly excluded, especially after I started dating my boyfriend, Jake. My parents consistently invited Elaine and her boyfriend to family events, but after I introduced Jake, their invitations became conditional and infrequent. My parents expressed concerns about their gatherings becoming too crowded if they invited Jake. This felt like a blatant double standard. What made it worse was their constant criticism of Jake. Despite his impressive academic achievements and successful career as a software engineer, they found reasons to nitpick. Meanwhile, Elaine's boyfriend, a college dropout still finding his way career-wise, was never subjected to the same scrutiny. My mother's comments were particularly hurtful. She once told me she would have preferred I'd found someone more family-oriented instead of a career-driven man like Jake. She even suggested he wouldn't be a good father, despite having no basis for this claim. Despite her remarks, I continued my relationship with Jake, confident in our future together. I even started declining invitations to family dinners and holiday events to avoid giving my parents further opportunities to criticize him. I doubt my absence was even noticed. 6 months ago, Jake proposed, and I happily accepted. He has been incredibly loving and supportive, and I can't imagine my life without him. I informed my parents of the engagement out of courtesy, wanting them to hear it from me directly. Their reactions were mixed. My dad seemed genuinely happy and offered congratulations, while my mom remained silent. Later, she texted expressing her disappointment, claiming I hadn't listened to her advice about Jake. She argued that as a woman, she understood other women better and felt Jake wasn't a good fit for our family. Exasperated, I asked her to stop with the constant negativity and if she had any legitimate reasons for disliking Jake, or if it was simply prejudice. My mom retorted that Jake constantly challenged her opinions, unlike Elaine's boyfriend. This left me speechless. It was true that Jake doesn't allow himself to be walked over. In the past, when my mother subtly mocked his career or views, he politely but firmly stood his ground. This is something I admire about him. He's aware of our family history and, unlike me, doesn't hesitate to assert himself with my mother. He's never been disrespectful, but he doesn't remain silent in the face of her criticisms. It became clear that my mother's issue with Jake wasn't based on any real flaws, but rather her discomfort with someone who wouldn't blindly agree with her. I told her that I didn't see anything wrong with Jake's behavior and, in fact, wished I were more assertive like him. My mother retorted that he was a bad influence, changing me too much. I ignored her criticisms and continued planning my wedding with Jake. 2 months ago, I sent out invitations, including one to Elaine. Despite not receiving any congratulations from her after the engagement announcement, I held no ill will and wanted her to be included. To my disappointment, Elaine declined without explanation. What truly shocked me, however, was my dad's call informing me that my mom wouldn't be attending the wedding. I knew my mother disapproved of Jake, but I hadn't expected her to go this far. My mom had reservations about Jake, but I held on to the hope that, for the sake of our family and my special day, she would put those differences aside and be with us. I was shocked when I learned she wouldn't be attending. My dad explained that Elaine had apparently arranged a surprise birthday celebration for her boyfriend on the same day, and my mom intended to be there instead of at my wedding. This revelation was baffling, considering Elaine's boyfriend's birthday was months away from my wedding date. I couldn't fathom why they would schedule a party on the very same day. Instead of confronting my mom directly, I decided to contact Elaine to get clarification. While we weren't close, I wanted to address the situation respectfully. I called her and asked her point blank about the party and if it was the reason she was skipping my wedding. To my astonishment, Elaine confirmed it. She explained that her boyfriend had always dreamed of a surprise party, and they had initially planned it for his actual birthday, but lacked the funds at the time. Elaine admitted she had worked hard to make it up to him, finding a unique venue that fit their budget. Unfortunately, the only date available at this venue coincided with my wedding. I expressed my disappointment and subtly suggested she could have picked another day, stressing how much her presence at my wedding would have meant to me. However, Elaine stated that her boyfriend's happiness took precedence over everything else and she wouldn't reschedule their party to accommodate my wedding. Her words stung, and she hung up before I could respond. Later, when I spoke to my mom about it, she gave me the same tired excuse she always used. She insisted Elaine would be hurt if she missed her boyfriend's party and reiterated that my dad was already attending my wedding, so I shouldn't be selfish and expect her to come too. My voice cracking, I told her how much it hurt to constantly feel like she treated me as less important than my sister. I told her she could do as she pleased, but I would no longer consider her my mother after this. She scoffed and told me I was being overly dramatic about my wedding. Following this falling out, I ceased all communication with my mom. I concentrated on making sure Jake and I had the most wonderful wedding possible, a celebration full of joy and love. Despite my disappointment, I was thankful my dad kept his promise and was there for me. When Jake and I finally exchanged vows, my aunt and uncle, who had anticipated my mom's absence despite urging her to attend, were understandably upset. They had emphasized the importance of her being there, and her choice to stay away deeply affected them. The situation was exacerbated when Elaine posted pictures from her boyfriend's surprise party, showing my mom dancing and drinking, seemingly carefree. The issue wasn't what she was doing, but the way they both appeared to flaunt their disregard for my feelings about their absence from my wedding. My mom never called Jake or me to check in or offer congratulations. After the wedding, my aunt and uncle immediately confronted my mother about her missing my wedding. They openly expressed their disappointment with her actions and didn't sugarcoat their frustration with her long-standing poor treatment of me. They emphasized they'd provided ample opportunities for her to be a good mother, but she clearly prioritized Elaine. They even threatened repercussions, including possibly disinheriting her. When Mom attempted to justify her attendance at Elaine's boyfriend's party, they declared they would ensure my inheritance, believing I deserved it. This unexpected declaration was a significant event. My mother, struggling to rationalize her absence, was now in a difficult position. Following the confrontation, she contacted me, begging forgiveness. She expressed disbelief that missing my wedding had blown up into such a major issue. During our short exchange, she complained about the unfairness of me potentially inheriting their estate. She pressured me to convince my aunt and uncle to reconsider. Her focus on the inheritance rather than repairing our relationship was evident, so I kept the conversation brief, prioritizing my honeymoon. Since returning, Mom's calls have become almost daily, pleading for reconciliation. She proposed a second, smaller wedding ceremony with close family, allowing her to attend. She expressed remorse and insisted I give her a chance to rectify the situation. Her apparent change of heart and persistent requests have left me conflicted. While I recognize her desire to mend things, the pain of her absence and the underlying issues remain. I'm reluctant to orchestrate another wedding solely for her benefit. Suddenly, Elaine texted, criticizing my involvement of our aunt and uncle in private matters and revealing Mom's fear of losing her inheritance. She urged a second wedding to restore family harmony, for Mom's sake. I'm unsure how to respond to the pressure from both my mom and Elaine. Update: 3 weeks have passed and much has changed. Thank you for the supportive comments and advice. They've been invaluable. I discussed everything with Jake, who was understandably upset by my family's behavior, especially on our wedding day. He agreed another wedding was unnecessary and potentially damaging emotionally. He encouraged me to stand my ground and tell Mom she had her chance and must face the consequences. Taking Jake's and many commenters' advice, I called Mom for a frank conversation. I acknowledged her apology but refused another wedding. I explained her absence was merely a symptom of years of favoritism and neglect. Mom defended herself, claiming love but difficulty connecting with me after I lived with my aunt and uncle for such an extended period that my mother confessed she felt inadequate as a parent, which led her to favor Elaine. I acknowledged her struggles but emphasized that they didn't justify her past actions. I also addressed the inheritance, stating firmly that I wouldn't interfere with my aunt and uncle's decisions regarding their will. It was their prerogative, and if she wanted to change their minds, she needed to communicate with them directly and mend their fractured relationship. The conversation concluded with my mom tearfully pleading with me to reconsider my stance. I held firm, expressing openness to rebuilding our relationship eventually, but requiring time and space to heal. I stipulated that any reconciliation necessitated acknowledging past hurts and demonstrating a genuine commitment to change. Following this difficult conversation, I received an unexpected call from Elaine. Surprisingly, she requested a meeting. Intrigued, I agreed to meet at a local cafe. Upon arrival, Elaine appeared anxious and uneasy. She began by apologizing for missing my wedding and for her past behavior. She admitted to harboring jealousy over my close bond with our aunt and uncle, feeling compelled to compete for our parents' attention. Then, Elaine revealed a shocking truth. She and her boyfriend had separated shortly after his surprise party. The stress of the party and the guilt of missing my wedding had strained their relationship beyond repair. She expressed regret for prioritizing the party over my wedding and wished she could undo the past. I was stunned by Elaine's candidness and honesty. For the first time in years, I glimpsed vulnerability in my sister. We talked for hours, sharing perspectives on our childhood and our relationship with our parents. Elaine confessed to feeling pressured by our mom to be perfect and resented me for seemingly having a refuge with our aunt and uncle. While this conversation didn't erase years of pain, it felt like a positive step forward. Elaine and I committed to rebuilding our relationship and fostering greater openness and honesty. However, just as things seemed to be improving with Elaine, I received upsetting news from my aunt and uncle. They informed me that my mom had confronted them, demanding an explanation for their intention to leave their inheritance to me. She accused them of attempting to purchase my affection and loyalty. My aunt and uncle were distressed by her accusations and behavior, assuring me that their decision stemmed from their love for me and disapproval of my parents' treatment of me throughout the years. They also revealed that my mom threatened to contest the will. This situation has introduced another layer of complexity to our family dynamics. I feel responsible for the stress my aunt and uncle are enduring, though I know it isn't truly my fault. I'm also concerned about how this will impact my nascent reconciliation with Elaine. Jake has been incredibly supportive, suggesting a short trip to clear our minds and gain perspective. I'm seriously considering his suggestion. I'm uncertain about my next steps. Should I attempt to mediate between my mom and my aunt and uncle? Should I remain uninvolved? How do I navigate my evolving relationship with Elaine amid this turmoil? Any guidance would be deeply appreciated. It's been approximately 2 months since my last update, and the situation has evolved in unforeseen ways. I'd like to express my gratitude again for everyone's support and guidance. Your insights have been invaluable during this difficult period. After careful consideration, Jake and I decided to embark on the short trip he suggested. We spent a week at a peaceful beach resort, escaping the family drama. It provided much-needed time to relax, reconnect, and gain perspective on recent events. During our trip, I received an unexpected call from my dad. He seldom initiates contact, so I sensed something significant had occurred. Dad informed me that Mom had suffered a minor heart attack. She was stable and recovering in the hospital, but doctors advised her to avoid stress. Despite my complex emotions towards my mom, I felt a surge of worry and guilt. Jake and I immediately cut our trip short and returned home. Upon arriving at the hospital, we found Elaine already there, appearing exhausted and anxious. To my surprise, my aunt and uncle were also present. They explained that despite recent conflicts with Mom, they couldn't stay away after learning about her health scare. Their presence had a calming effect on everyone. Entering Mom's hospital room, I was struck by her fragility and vulnerability. Her eyes welled up when she saw me, and she reached out to hold my hand. For the first time in years, I saw genuine remorse in her eyes. Mom spoke, her voice weak but resolute. She apologized for her past behavior, confessing that insecurities and fears had driven a wedge between us. She admitted feeling inadequate as a mother, especially after entrusting me to my aunt and uncle during my early years. Instead of confronting those feelings, she focused her energy on Elaine, creating an unhealthy family dynamic. Then, Mom revealed something shocking. She had been seeing a therapist for the past month, striving to understand her actions and address her issues. The heart attack served as a wake-up call, making her realize the need to mend fences before it was too late. Elaine, who had been listening quietly, suddenly broke down in tears. She apologized for her part in the family dysfunction, admitting she had exploited Mom's favoritism instead of supporting me. She expressed regret for missing my wedding and not being a better sister. As we talked, years of pent-up emotions surfaced. Tears flowed, accusations were made, and painful truths were shared. Yet, for the first time, it felt like we were genuinely listening to one another. Amid this emotional outpouring, my aunt and uncle joined the conversation, sharing their perspective and explaining their decision regarding their will. They emphasized that it wasn't about favoritism, but about rectifying what they perceived as years of imbalance within the family. To everyone's astonishment, Mom asked my aunt and uncle to maintain their original will. She now understood their reasoning and no longer wished to contest it. She acknowledged that her actions had been fueled by fear and greed, not love and concern. This conversation marked a turning point in our family dynamics. While it didn't instantly erase years of hurt and resentment, it paved the way for open communication and healing. We all agreed to attend family therapy sessions to address our issues and develop healthier relationships. As for Jake and me, we're cautiously optimistic about the future. Given these developments, we've decided to maintain healthy boundaries with my family while allowing them the opportunity to demonstrate their commitment to change. Jake has been an incredible source of support, reminding me that it's acceptable to protect my emotional well-being while remaining open to reconciliation. I understand we have a long journey ahead, but for the first time in years, I feel a sense of hope regarding my family relationships. It's a complex mix of emotions: relief, anxiety, hope, and lingering pain. But I'm dedicated to processing these feelings and giving my family a chance to make amends. Thank you for your unwavering support and advice. Your words have provided strength and clarity during some of the most difficult moments. I'll continue to provide updates on our progress. It has been 6 months since my last update, and I wanted to share the evolution of my family dynamics. The family therapy sessions have been challenging, yet incredibly rewarding. We've experienced breakthroughs and setbacks, but overall, I observe a positive shift in our interactions. My mom has continued individual therapy alongside our family sessions, making significant strides in understanding and modifying her past behaviors. There have been difficult conversations requiring her to confront the pain she inflicted, but she has demonstrated a genuine desire to make amends. Elaine and I have been actively rebuilding our sisterly bond. We've established regular sister dates to reconnect and share our lives. It's been rewarding to discover the person my sister has become without the burden of resentment and competition. My dad, previously passive in family conflicts, has also become more involved. He has acknowledged his role in enabling the dysfunction and is actively striving to be more present and supportive. My aunt and uncle have remained incredibly supportive, participating in some family therapy sessions to provide context and perspective on our family history. They have maintained their decision regarding their will, but it's no longer a source of conflict. Jake has been my constant throughout this process, offering patience, understanding, support, and space when needed. His presence serves as a continuous reminder of the healthy, loving relationship I deserve. A significant development occurred last month when my mom approached Jake and me with a proposal. She suggested renewing our vows on our first anniversary with a small ceremony involving immediate family and close friends. Unlike her previous suggestion of a second wedding, this felt genuine and devoid of guilt or ulterior motives. After careful consideration, Jake and I agreed, viewing it as an opportunity to celebrate our love and the progress our family has made. The ceremony was intimate and beautiful, filled with emotion and sincerity. Witnessing my mom, dad, and Elaine genuinely happy for us was a cherished moment. I won't claim that everything is perfect. We still experience occasional tension, and old habits sometimes resurface. However, we now possess the tools and willingness to address these issues directly. I've learned that healing family relationships is an ongoing process requiring patience, forgiveness, and commitment from all involved. While I remain cautiously optimistic about the future of our family relationships, I'm also proud of the boundaries I've established and the personal growth I've achieved. Thank you for your continued support and guidance. Your words have provided strength and clarity during this challenging period. While our family story is still unfolding, I feel hopeful about the chapters to come.